They are at it again. Apparently, Sue Bird was speaking with Megan Rapinoe and Jamel Hill and came out here and said something really interesting in regards to Breanna Stewart and Caitlin Clark. And we're just going to play it for you, and we're going to break it down here. So let's listen to what Sue Bird had to say.
I just want to go back to the Breanna Stewart thing for a second, because to your point, I'm really just doubling down on it. The lack of beat writers, the lack of coverage in our world, in the world of women's basketball, 4 national championships is standard. That's not the case for men's basketball, really for any other
anything.
So like,
all right, let's pick that apart. So Breanna Stewart won 4 national championships consecutively at UConn. Pretty unprecedented for, men's or women's. That's a great accomplishment. I don't know, however, how you call that the standard when that's something that tons of people don't do. That's a specific accomplishment to Breanna Stewart. UConn, Nafisa Collier was a part of those teams. And, as I bring up those 2 names, the people that are dueling in the current WNBA finals, makes you think, maybe those UConn teams were pretty stacked up. It's no secret UConn was just so dominant. I believe they had 6, 7. I saw some stat where Breanna Stewart never played with less than 7 WNBA players on her roster at any given point. This is like Bill Russell in the 60s, like with the Celtics. It's like, slow down, man. So let's, it almost was expected at that time when you look at the talent landscape. 4 consecutive national, you should win 4 national championships in a row if you have 7 to 8 WNBA players, including Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier.
that is the bar. So in another world,
That's not the bar. I'm sorry. That's just absurd to think that's the bar for greatness.
it's like, if you get to the Final Four championship game twice, that's an amazing. By the way, it is an amazing feat. It's not to take away from what Caitlin did,
just not
but
as
it's
amazing
not
as
4
Stewie.
national championships in a row. But if we had people talking.
Okay, so I'm not playing the video, obviously, but you just got to trust me on what happened here. So Sue is kind of saying it like as a matter of fact. Camera cuts to Jamel Hill. She starts busting out laughing. I don't know, man. What do you guys think is tougher to do? To go to 2 consecutive national title games with Iowa, with maybe one other teammate who is a role player at best in the WNBA, or play with 7 or 8 of them and win 4 consecutive national titles without really being challenged? I don't know, man. This seems like, it's UConn versus the world, the UConn bias, the UConn championship trophy case getting, held out there. But I don't know. I guess maybe their issue is, despite all the wins, despite all the, the UConn pedigree and everything like that, none of that really moved the needle. None of that really shook things up as far as interest, people recognizing that greatness. And it's like, all right, if we I feel like you need to compare UConn to UConn. I feel like the Maya Moore and Tina Charles teams would have blown through Breanna Stewart, maybe even the one Sue Bird was on with Diana Taurasi. Like, that's how those things should be compared. I feel like we have to do a better job evaluating circumstances, who's playing with who, in what time, and saying that 4 national championships in a row is the bar is absurd in 2024, especially in the age of NIL, player movement, and the way that the stars on these particular teams are kind of lining up to go more than just UConn, Tennessee. Now we have South Carolina in the mix. Now we even have Iowa put on the map because of Caitlin Clark. They're getting big transfers like Lucy Olson. I just think this is a very reductive and primitive way to evaluate greatness. And if women's basketball is going to come into, the mainstream kind of lexicon of how, people take in sports, we have to use our brains to think about, oh, they may have had some kind of big advantage. There was a reason to explain why they won 4 consecutive national titles. And that's not to diminish their national titles. It's just to say that doesn't make that the standard. That's an outlier. As well as Caitlin Clark being an outlier at Iowa. It takes a player like Caitlin Clark to put a program like Iowa on the map. If Caitlin Clark was just playing on UConn last year with Paige Beckers, with Aaliyah Edwards, with everyone, and they're just winning, I don't think this thing captures in the same way. And you want to know the proof that I have of that? We've seen all the stacked UConn rosters with all the players that never caught that way. People want to watch somewhat of an underdog story. People want to watch, a new kind of flavor. And at every turn, people have looked to diminish this run. They didn't win the national title. That's fine. They got to the national title game. It's just about as close as you can get in college. Most people even get credit for going to Final Fours, especially on the men's side. Oh, they made 2 Final Fours, and you remember them as legendary players, legendary teams. But when it comes to Caitlin Clark, they have trouble giving it up, and I don't know why still. I understand that Iowa sent UConn out of here this year. I understand that Gino Auriemma has been categorically wrong about Caitlin Clark since she was in the 8th grade. However, one day they will let it go. Unfortunately, today is not that day. But until then, we're going to call them to the carpet. We're going to break this down, and we're going to think about this stuff a lot smarter than how it's being presented to us. So anyway, this is One Lifetime with Rich Latta. Let me know what you thought in the comments of Sue Bird's comments, and how do you evaluate greatness? We rolling.